question in the back. Hello, everybody. My name is Kate Cerulli, and I am so pleased to thank you for joining us today for an event that is going to be speaking about how to prevent elder abuse. I join you from the Susan B. Anthony Center, where we work to translate science into practice. It's amazing. We have so many scientists across the country and at our own institution who are doing important work in the social determinants of health, but often those findings get put into research articles or into policy pieces that everyday people don't have access to necessarily. So our job today is to try to translate some science into practice in ways that we can hopefully prevent older adult abuse and neglect. We have a great lineup of speakers here today, but first I'm going to get started with a couple of housekeeping tidbits. The topic today is titled Risk to Resilience, and we're looking to help people understand how to keep themselves and loved ones safe in the community. This webinar, as you know, is being recorded. You will have received a message when you joined. And please feel free to keep this interesting and engaging. Be submitting comments and questions in the chat. My job is to coalesce the questions in the chat, and at the end we will have a robust Q&A with our panelists. I will be relaying the questions thematically. At the Susan B. Anthony Center, we reach across the university, our community. We work at the state and national level as well as internationally. And today, as a matter of fact, you are going to hear about an international perspective on the aging population and how different cultures think about aging so we can learn from each other. We also work with the student population, undergraduate, graduates. We work on campus and community events. We work on DEI issues for diversity and inclusion. And we also produce our own research and scholarship. But one of our most exciting jobs at the university is disseminating and highlighting other people's amazing work, including colleagues and community providers. Next slide, please. I want to thank our community partners. Nothing at the Susan B. Anthony Center happens without other people helping us make it happen. So Lifespan has been at the table from the beginning. I want to thank Lifespan. I also want to thank the You Are Aging Institute, which you're going to hear about in a little while. Later, I'll be thanking our committee who helped bring this topic to our attention and was excited to work with us to select a great lineup of speakers, including local and national people. Right now, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Annette Medina-Walpole, who is the Paul H. Fine Professor of Medicine, Chief of the Division of Geriatrics and Aging, and the inaugural Director of the University of Rochester Aging Institute. She has had an amazing 25-year career as a geriatrician and focused on inspiring and educating health professionals of all levels and disciplines to promote local, regional, and national excellence in the care of older adults. Our speakers, including Dr. Medina-Walpole, have amazing resumes, and we could spend the entire webinar talking about them. But to be able to get right to the topics of interest, we have provided you with their bios on the website which you registered. So full bios are located there. Doctor, I will hand the mic to you.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm both delighted and honored to be here today to introduce the second in a series of 3 webinars focused on empowering older adults for lifelong well-being. And as part of the Aging Institute, this really rings true. This is perfectly aligns with the work that we're doing with the Aging Institute. And I'd like to share some of that information about our institute with you. So the Aging Institute encompasses our entire university, the entire institution, including the undergraduate campus, the medical center, and then of course our community and the Finger Lakes region. Our vision: with vitality and resilience, aging adults have the power to thrive. And our mission is to promote vitality in aging by transforming care and communities through collaboration, discovery, and innovation. The Aging Institute impacts all aspects of our university and medical center, including research, education, and patient care. And this approach, as well as our outreach to the community, makes us vastly different than most other national aging institutes that focus solely on research. So we wanted this institute to resonate with all of our stakeholders. So our pillars, if you will, are vital discovery, representing research, vital care, representing patient care and workforce education, and vital living, which engages our community and the older adults themselves. What does it mean to age with vitality? Well, our strategic plan at the medical center says we'll empower people with the knowledge to defy their genetic limits and achieve healthful longevity. And that's really what we're about. The Aging Institute is committed to promoting health, independence, and engagement, enabling all of us as we age to live our best lives. And I have to point out Ms. Martha Hope, who is the CEO and founder of Senior Expressions. She was on last week's webinar panel and really, truly exemplifies vitality and aging. So the Aging Institute is building a strong research infrastructure that is translating scientific discovery into clinical care. We ask, how and why do we age? What factors determine our longevity, our lifespan, and our health span, which is really not just how long you're alive, but how long you're healthy? What interventions can we do to promote health, well-being, and vitality? And finally, can we slow down the aging process itself or identify what modulates the aging process? And this could be viewed as the ultimate preventative medicine. With regards to vital care, we're working to increase access to high quality geriatrics care, as well as be a leader in workforce education and development, and promote an age-friendly health system across all of our sites. So this is something that is near and dear to my heart. We are transforming URMC through the Age Friendly Health System Initiative, which is a national initiative, and you can receive first and second level recognition. We are excited that both Strong and Highland, our main hospitals, have the full recognition, and we have other hospitals following in close pursuit. We are moving this out in home care, at our community nursing homes. Eastman Institute of Oral Health and our Center for Perioperative Medicine are the first in the country to be recognized as age-friendly. So we are very proud of these efforts, and the Aging Institute is leading this charge. With regards to community engagement. So our university motto is Meliora, or ever better. And this arm of the Institute focuses on the older adults themselves and our community. So we truly believe that aging should not be viewed as a time of decline, but instead a period of life where people can pursue new interests, new opportunities. And as this slide says, Meliora shouldn't end at 65, 75, 85, even 100 years. So we are offering lifestyle interventions. We're looking to create new community partnerships that really promote vitality and aging. I'm personally working to increase our engagement with Rochester's older adults through community events, teaching series, and focus groups. So we will work to achieve our goal to make Rochester really the ideal place to age well, and ultimately develop an age-friendly community and university across our campus and medical center. So the possibilities here are truly endless. So if you'd like to learn more about the bright future for geriatrics and aging in Rochester, and certainly our university, you can hold up your camera, or we can, I think, put in the chat on the Aging Institute website. So thank you so much. I wish you all aging with vitality, and enjoy this amazing upcoming webinar.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. And now I will invite Baitullah to the stage as we raise Baitullah's slides. I am so honored to be introducing Baitullah to this webinar and to all of you. Baitullah comes to us through the Global Engagement Office at the University of Rochester as an expert, spending 2 years with us as a visiting scholar. And through the 2 years, we have learned much from Baitullah regarding a host of issues that immigrant families face. There are a number of presentations that he has given to the university in Boston and around the globe, actually, our International Women's Day. I encourage you to watch whatever you can find. We also will be providing some talks in our toolkit. And when we were planning this webinar, Baitullah shared some stories with us about how people age in his country, which is Afghanistan, and also how that impacts their aging processes in our own community. So, no matter where you live or where you're joining us from today, you will find such important information in this next talk. Thank you for being here, Baitullah, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Kate. It's such an honor to be part of this STEAM group and present what I have learned about aging in my community, where, of course, culture around aging is totally different. We are a collectivistic culture where people have to live in this multi-generational households, and most of the immigrant after coming to the United States keep that culture, and they are living in this multi-generational household. But also immigration elderly adult face some of the problem that I would love to talk about that. Could you please move to the next slide? Everyone who is moving to United States as an immigrant, most of the time they move late in their life, and that cause for them to start their employment very late in their life, which means they will have much lesser retirement benefit, or lose on a lot of retirement benefits, and that's causing lacking retirement planning for them. One of the reasons that most of the immigrants do not have retirement planning is that they do not know about the retirement culture back in their communities. It is very different than what it is here in the individualistic culture of the United States. Another thing is what I mentioned is the jobs that they're holding. Mostly they're working in blue collar jobs, which are companies are not providing much for them for their future. Uh, Elderly adults also in the United States as immigrant has much difficult time with the acculturation. This struggle is very different from younger immigrant who want to move to United States, and they are already familiar with the United States through the media and different medium of communication. Since they are elderly adult are carrying an entire life of experience of their own culture, when they move to United States, it's difficult for them to adjust to the culture that's hosted here. Another problem that most of the elderly adult immigrant are facing is the dealing with social isolation. Especially this is true about religious minorities. Back home in Afghanistan, religious communities such as mosque and other places are common places for elderly adults to gather together and talk about the issues and have an active role in their societies. But when they move to United States, one of the problems that they have is that there do not have so many establishment and institutions that they can go and be there. Another problem for the elderly adult immigrant is navigating the U.S. immigration policy. As we all know, one of the ways for the U.S. Naturalization process is to know English language and to pass the civic exam. Most of the elderly adults who are coming to the United States, they either lack a high school education from their own community, and another problem is that it is so difficult to learn a new language in that age. So the next slide, please. So as a solution, immigrant families, of course, introduce multi-generational household where everyone can support each other. Of course, the multi-generational household is a culture norm too. It is culturally understood as a taboo to send your elderly adults to nursing homes or to send them to other caring facilities. But also it's economic necessity for elderly adult, uh, so the family can share resources that they have. Some of these resources could be providing financial support for each other. As the working parents are working, they can provide financial support to their elderly adult in the family, providing secure housing. If they were to send to a nursing home or other facilities, they have to pay extra money, and that's not possible. So they already have a cheap house where all the family can live together. Another thing that elderly adult can receive in this multi-generational household is home care. to provide cleaning for them, food for them, bathing or other needs that they have on day-to-day life. It's provided by their children who are living with the elderly adult in the same household. And reciprocation for all these services and all these benefits that elderly adults receive in the multi-generational household, they're also doing a lot so for the working parents. One of that is childcare for them. When working parents are going outside, their kids are under the supervision of the elderly adult in the household. And this way, they kind of share the culture from the adults to the younger generation. Next slide, please. Now, there is, of course, benefits with multi-generational household, which make life easier for the immigration, but there are lots of problem and challenges with that too. One of the problem that can be seen regularly is the imbalance personal freedom. When you're living in multi-generational household, everyone should adjust to the needs of other in the household because that's one of the basics of culturistic culture. So that bring problem in the family sometimes. Another thing is working parents are under extra pressure to provide for both their parent and their children at the same time, which cause problem for them. And most of them are working 2 jobs or 3 jobs to answer this necessity. Oh, another thing is the generational gap between the elderly adult and the new generation raising in that household. Mostly the younger generation are faster to the process of acculturation and assimilation to the new culture, but the elderly adult who are living in the same household, they emphasize on the culture that they brought from their home country. And that sometimes cause family conflict and maybe in some cases domestic violence, which is making life difficult for people who are living in the multi-generational household. That's why most of the immigrant elderly adults need extra attention, and they are struggling with problem more than other immigrant or other elderly adult who are citizen and have lived their entire life in the United States are facing. From my side, it's that much. And if anyone had a question, I can answer later. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for that. And the reminder that when people are in a process in their life, including the aging process, there's tremendous intersectionality where someone comes from, their culture's concepts of aging, an intergenerational home that may not be viewed as very common in this day and time, but yet they exist all over our community. So thank you so much for that important work. I will invite Tracey to join us. And I'm very pleased to be introducing Tracey, who I've known for quite some time. Tracey comes to us from one of our co-sponsors, Lifespan. And Tracey is the Director of Education, Training, and Research Initiatives, Upstate Elder Abuse Center at Lifespan, and has been working in this field for over a decade. Tracey has a passion and enthusiasm and commitment for the aging population that in many ways we don't see very often. She is a champion. There is never a time that we pick up the phone to call her to ask her for help, that she doesn't answer the phone. Sometimes that's unusual as well. She speaks all over on topics related to elder abuse, and her influence also reaches widely, both at the local, state, and national levels. She did co-author the Elder Abuse Risk and Evaluation Tool. I'm looking forward to hearing her speak today. Every time I hear her speak, I learn more. We're going to hear about many areas of her expertise, but what you may not hear about today is the breadth and depth. So please visit our website where you can see her bio and learn more about her. Thank you so much for being here.
All right, took me a minute to unmute. I apologize for that. Hello, everyone. My name is Tracey Siebert Konopko, and as Dr. Cerulli stated, I am a social worker over at Lifespan. And just very briefly about our services here, we are a not-for-profit that has over 30 different programs specifically for older adults and their caregivers. So essentially in Monroe County, in some of our surrounding counties, if we don't know about it or we don't have it, it probably is a service that doesn't exist. We really are a one-stop shop. And the Upstate Elder Abuse Center is a large program within Lifespan that encapsulates several different aspects. One of the first and foremost of which is our elder abuse prevention program, which started in 1986 and is a complementary program to Adult Protective Services. So we work with people age 60 and older. We do go into their homes and into anywhere in the community that they reside. That does include skilled nursing facilities and hospitals, which is what is a key differentiation between us and Adult Protective. In the 90s, we added our SCAMS program, which is also going into folks' homes in a 12-county region. Elder abuse prevention is in a 10-county region. And the SCAMS program really works on those stranger scams. So folks that are getting calls about car warranties or about lottos that they didn't enter or about their grandparent or their grandchild needing help. After that, we developed an enhanced multidisciplinary team, or EMDT initiative. This is a consulting program for professionals in the community where they can bring complex cases of elder abuse. And it's really in every single county in New York State. So Lifespan personally coordinates 13 teams in the Finger Lakes region, but we are also the statewide fiduciary for the entire program. Then after that, we developed the New York State Coalition on Elder Abuse, actually before EMDT initiatives, truly. The Coalition on Elder Abuse, the website is at the bottom of the screen there. You can see the nyselderabuse.org. It's a wonderful group, and essentially our person who coordinates it sends out periodic emails, but she holds those names and addresses very tightly so that you're not going to get spammed with everything else as well. And then we don't have to send out our scams folks to help you out. So it's a win-win. Next after that, we have our helpline for concerned persons, the number of which you can see, the 800 number. The helpline is really a gap that was bridged. So essentially, when we're talking about something like elder abuse and elder mistreatment, what we're talking about is that this is part of a system. And abuse does not happen in isolation, nor does it happen in a vacuum. So what we see are that folks are being affected by the abuse of someone else because they care about that someone else. They care about the players involved. So what they want to do is to really have an opportunity for those individuals to reach out and get resources and also to be heard, because what I found more than anything is the more people that know about abuse and elder abuse in particular, and the more people that talk about it, that means that more people are able to intervene and to help out. So this program is really for those helpers. It helps to preserve them and also to give them a little bit of guidance on how to put up good boundaries to preserve their help. And then finally, we do statewide education and training. Next slide, please. So today, this is my sad Mickey. And my sad Mickey is talking a little bit about all the ways that older adults might get harmed. The first is elder abuse. That is really on the domestic violence spectrum. So it's people that are in trusted relationships, they know each other, and that relationship goes awry when someone decides to start becoming abusive. A scams relationship is very different and it's unidirectional. What I mean by that is that the scammer is calling up with one intent and one intent only, and that is to take money or something valuable from the older adult. The older adult in these situations perceives often that there is a larger relationship at play here. Romance scams are one of the top scams that are being reported. But regardless, the older adult thinks that some sort of relationship exists when one doesn't. And the result is that they lose a lot of the time their entire life savings in just a few transactions. And then finally, we have crimes. Anything that is committed under elder abuse or scams can technically be considered a crime, even if it's not always prosecutable. So we have to consider that crimes do occur, but what differentiates a true crime from a lot of the other things is that a crime could be committed by literally anyone at any time, regardless of relationship. So it encapsulates the other two. Next slide, please. Elder abuse, again, is a patterned behavior. It's not a one-off. It happens over time, and it's in the context of a trusted relationship. The most frequent that we see is by adult children and grandchildren. We also see a ton of partners or intimate partners, spouses, who commit elder abuse as well. And domestic violence grown old is how it had been colloquially known before. What we also see are the types of elder abuse here. So emotional, financial, neglect, physical, and sexual. Next slide, please. So some brief statistics before I get into the types. One is that we are the only state that doesn't have blanket mandatory reporting for elder abuse that occurs in the community. Now, Judge Winslow will be talking a little bit about what that is a little bit more, so I'm not going to belabor it. But another key important fact is that only about 5% of older adults actually reside in skilled nursing facilities, meaning that the majority of older adults are in the community with us every single day. Next, we see that there's an 11.4% incidence rate of elder abuse in the community, so within a 10-year period, and about a 10% prevalence overall of cases that exist. And what we see, again, about 90% of the perpetration of elder abuse is by family members, relatives. Next slide, please. So what I want you to know about emotional abuse is that it's foundational and it's subjective. I was talking to my mom the other day about someone that I had grown up with, and this person was the type of individual who would do almost everything she could to get under your skin until you would explode. And people would catch the explosion, but they wouldn't see who actually lit the fuse. They didn't see that happen. They just saw the aftermath. And that's what it is. She would know exactly how to get under my skin in a way that I would react to. And as a young person and as a teenager, I didn't have the emotional depth to be able to describe that or to mitigate it in any sort of responsive and mature fashion. Of course I didn't. I was a child. And what we see is that this happens over time, but it gets more complex. Because while she was a person that I went to school with, what we're seeing with elder abuse are people that are loved beyond measure. The perpetrators are family members, most of the time adult children. I myself have a 9-year-old, and there is no person in the world more important to me or that can drive me more insane more quickly. Talk about people that can get under your skin quickly. A miniature version of yourself is going to do that. But the fact is that I love that child more than myself. I care more about what happens to him in his lifespan than I care about my own life. He is more important to me, and that is not going to change because he becomes an adult. It doesn't. We see a lot of if-thenning. If you don't, then I will put you in a nursing home, won't let you see the grandkids. I'm going to destroy your garden. I'm going to hurt your pet. I'll kill myself. These are the type of statements that are made. And I would implore anyone to not have a reaction, an emotional and visceral reaction, if someone that you love starts to threaten you in that way. Next slide, please. And again, that most important thing to know about that emotional abuse is that it's the foundation upon which other abuse can thrive and can really flourish, because the emotional abuse really takes a person's self-worth and erodes it to the point where they think that they deserve the abuse that's occurring. I won't belabor financial exploitation too much because I know Judge Winslow will be talking about it as well. But I wanted to summarize it by saying that the most important thing to know about financial exploitation is that there's no such thing as a small theft. If you've taken anything from an older adult for your own enrichment at their detriment without permission, that is theft, that is elder abuse, and it's not okay. Next slide, please. With neglect, what we see is older adults who are being either actively or passively neglected primarily. So the active neglect is when I am a caregiver and I know that I have to do X, Y, or Z for a person. I'm choosing not to do it because I'm too busy, or I don't want to, or I don't like you, or you were mean to me in the past, or you didn't thank me the right way. And I'm choosing not to do something that that person relies on me for and that I have an obligation to fulfill. Passive neglect is really an interesting form of neglect because it's that in between, and it can easily move into active neglect if all sorts of interventions are proposed and educational opportunities are given, but they aren't seen through, or there's more yeah-butting. We hear a lot of yeah-buts here with neglect. Yeah, that really is a great idea, but we can't do it because of this, this, and this. Most likely it's going to be because of the cost of it. To my answer to that would be, well, but whose money is it? Because if it's older adults' money being used to pay for services for the older adult, there should be no problem with that. Passive neglect is often in the context of a person that simply has not been trained. Roughly 80% of caregiving in the United States is done by lay people, family members who haven't been trained on the things like how to change a bandage, how to physically move someone to transfer them from a seated to a standing position or to another seated position, who haven't been trained in nutrition or anything like that, in medication management. And so we expect these folks to be able to provide care to someone in a context that may be very challenging for them as well. And let's be very clear, not everyone is meant to be a caregiver. Not everyone is cut out to be a caregiver the way that others are. And so to have those expectations is also very challenging. But the most important thing to remember about neglect is that it's not an excuse. Caregiving is hard. Absolutely one of the most challenging and rewarding things a human can do for another human. And yet, it is not an excuse, even though it's challenging, to abuse someone. We would not use that excuse. It wouldn't fly if we were talking about children or even pets. So why do we let it fly when we're talking about older adults? Next slide, please. Excuse me. With physical abuse, punching, hitting, kicking, all of those things, oftentimes we see a delay in help seeking. So something has happened, but it happened a week or two ago. Most often what we're going to see are stories that are inconsistent with the injuries that the person has. What we do know is that forensically speaking, injuries for elder abuse sometimes will mirror something that you would see with child abuse as well. So fractures, for example, to the long bones, different types of spiral fractures, dislocation of the shoulders from the back, all that type of stuff is very common with older adults as well, but is often reduced to, well, they're older and they fall a lot, or they're on blood thinners, so of course they're bruising. But the fact is that about 70% of accidental bruises occur on the extremities. So only 30% occur on the face, head, neck, and trunk of the body. And in 90% of situations, an older adult can tell you how they got in a bruise, even if when it's an abusive bruise, even if they have dementia. So people know how they're getting their non-accidental abusive bruising. And most of the time you don't remember where an accidental bruise came from, and it's going to be on your leg and arm, and they're going to be smaller in diameter. The most important thing to know about physical abuse is that it takes less force to do more damage. So with physical abuse, if I just as much as push someone lightly when they have an unsteady gait and they're older, they could fall and break a hip. And statistically speaking, they will be dead within up to 6 months after that broken hip because of the loss of function and the loss of ability to move, literally to move. It will have a deleterious effect that has a snowball effect as well. Next slide, please. Sexual abuse is the least commonly reported form of abuse, but it happens. And that's the most important thing to know, is that it happens. Most people have not been trained on what constitutes sexual elder abuse, nor have they been trained on how to ask about it. But in a good health overview, in a good health evaluation, sexual health should also be talked about. I do want to point out the fact that, like, as it pertains to elder or sexual abuse, marital rape wasn't even on the books as a law until the 1990s in all of the states of New York. And to this day in 2024, marital rape is held at a lesser level than is rape by a stranger. So people have different aspects of the health aspect of sexual assault. Most people have not had a comprehensive sexual health education in their life, and therefore they do not have the language or the knowledge to describe it in detail. When we add into that also different cultural norms, like Baitullah was saying, that when you have language difference and stuff like that, a lot of the time we don't have a one-to-one language corresponding word, a translatable word for abuse, for sexual assault, for rape, or anything like that. So we have to be a little bit better at seeing what's going on. Next slide, please. So some current trends, next slide. One is housing issues. We're seeing a boatload of housing issues right now and people moving back in. So from a preventive standpoint, if you are an older individual and you have a home in the community, you may want to help out a family member, and it's beautiful that you want to do so, but you should never help out someone at your own detriment. And also, even if it's family, get a solid lease in place so that you can do a quick eviction if you need to. The longer someone stays with you, they can maintain residency, and then they can be a squatter. So you could have someone living in your home that you never gave permission to live there long term, just to be aware of that. Next slide. Some other, again, I go back to that caregiver mythology. Yeah, budding, but I promised. No promise is equal to abuse. It doesn't matter what you promised. Things change. And if you promised them they'd be at home, it didn't mean that you were going to abuse them. So let's not take that as an excuse. There's a lot of myths about caregiving. Abuse is never, ever allowed and never okay. Next slide, please. So again, now a person who utilizes drugs or who has mental health does not mean that they're going to be abusive. However, it's the context in which a lot of abuse does occur, and it certainly adds to the unpredictability of a situation. Now, we also have a lot of older adults with mental health and drug misuse issues. So we do want to consider the fact that those are factors that also have to be held in the same room as the abuse. And therefore, it's a multifaceted matter of approach to get that ameliorated. Next slide, please. Adult Protective Services is the best referral source. Their criteria are a little bit strict, but it's important to understand that they are a last resort, but you can always call Adult Protective Services if you have a question or want to go over a situation, and they will direct you appropriately. And I think that I'm on time now, or I at time? All right, so the information is available here, and I will also make sure to put that in the chat. So it's OCFS, the Adult Protective Services, is through the Office of Children and Family Services. I will put it in the chat so that everyone has that information if you'd like to reach out in your community. Offices for the Aging, that's your 211. That's where you're going to get anything that you want aging related in any community that you live in New York State. Domestic violence programs are also statewide. Every community has them. Some questions for elder abuse. I like to keep them open-ended. What's a typical day like for you? How safe do you feel? When will you know that it's time to leave? And then just to go back to our core programming so everyone has that information as well. And I want to thank everyone so much for your time and for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Tracey. Obviously, Tracey could talk for a day, so could Baitullah, so could Judge Winslow. This is an issue that we recognize is not able to be covered in an hour. Our goal today is to share with you what organizations are doing, people who are working behind the scenes and sometimes in front of the scenes, to try to help families. But the number one purpose for this is for us to all be thinking, is there anyone in our lives or ourselves, depending on the age you are, that should be thinking about these considerations? So we are going to wrap up before we go to Q&A with Judge Winslow. I have known Judge Winslow since 1993, and Judge Winslow has been an advocate of aging safely, and most importantly, is so interested in prevention. And what we saw when Judge Winslow was at the district attorney's office was starting an elder abuse prevention program, going around and talking to people who are living in senior citizen housing and other homes, congregate living, to share the words about how we could prevent abuse from happening, similar to what Tracey is saying. Who's living with you? What access do they have to your materials and your finances? Judge Winslow was just recognized by the Women's Bar Association 2 weekends ago in Saratoga for her tireless effort around LGBTQ individuals' experiences in the court systems and how to make them better. As you can see, Tracey is furiously dropping things in the chat. Just want to remind everybody, we will be having a toolkit that will be posted on our website, and these videos will be posted on our YouTube channel as well. Thank you, Judge, for being here.
Thank you, Kate. So criminal elder abuse, the three kinds of criminal elder abuse that we see most frequently are financial crimes against the elderly, physical crimes, and sexual crimes. Physical abuse of an elderly person, I'll touch on just briefly. It would include intentional use of force against an elderly person. You might think of, for example, an assault causing physical injury, which causes substantial pain to someone, as an example. If you're in the Rochester area, the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, while it's differently structured than it was back in the 90s when it started its elder abuse program, it does have, as part of its special victims unit, a dedicated individual who is required to respond 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for any issues or questions regarding elder abuse. And that individual is Patrick Gallagher. In physical abuse, there are options that the victim can have. Obviously, the first option would be whether or not to call the police and have the perpetrator arrested. Oftentimes, if it's a family member, there might be hesitation about having a family member arrested when really what the victim wants is to have that person get help so they stop doing what they're doing. And that can be achieved through the criminal justice system because the victim is the person who is the most important in that scenario. So the contacting either an attorney, a private attorney for assistance, the district attorney, adult protectives, lifespan, or definitely pursuing the matter through court. Another option, if there is a physical injury, is to get an order of protection. To do that, ordinarily, it's done often in a criminal court. Sometimes can be done under certain circumstances in family court as well. But in criminal court, generally a charge of some kind is filed, but it can be carried out and processed in such a way that a criminal conviction doesn't result, but the order of protection is in effect for those people who are hesitant to have a family member prosecuted or someone that they're relying on to take care of them. Signs of physical abuse of an elder often include some of these Tracey covered: broken bones, bruises, burns, dislocated joints, head injuries, sprains, a pattern of hospitalizations, or a pattern of utilizing different emergency rooms so that the pattern isn't necessarily noted, can also be done. I'm going to move briefly then to sexual abuse of an elderly person, which occurs when a perpetrator engages in sexual conduct without the consent of the elder. Sometimes consent cannot be given due to a health conditions such as with elderly persons, dementia or Alzheimer's. Some possible indications of sexual abuse can be torn or bloody or stained clothing, bruises of the genitals or the inner thigh area of the elder, bleeding from the genitals or the anus, or sometimes even including a new onset of bedwetting. And I say that these are possible indications because certainly they can have innocuous causes also, or causes related to aging. But they can be evidence that require further investigation as to what the cause is. Also, sexual abuse can cause particular trauma in a victim. The victim can sustain both physical and emotional injuries, can cause trauma, both physical and psychological, and also can lead to a decline in function and in the overall well-being of the elder person. We might refer to it as aging the person more quickly because of the trauma that's incurred. Moving then to financial abuse. Next slide, please. The financial crime that's committed against seniors, generally we see two general types: financial exploitation by relatives or caregivers, which is probably the highest percentage that's seen, or at least is reported, I should say. And then we also see a good deal of fraud committed by strangers. Next slide, please. And I would note that financial theft steals not only the money from the victim, but it also often steals the financial security for that person's remaining years. It can also steal something that was a part of that individual, such as their trust in other people, their confidence, their health, their independence, and their pride in their self and who they are, even at the number of years they've lived. It can even be so extensive as to result in the loss of that senior's home which in and of itself is horrible, but it also has a ripple effect that we might not always think about, such as losing your accumulated memories, those things that you surround yourself with that you no longer can surround yourself with because you're forced to live in a very small environment, such as a small apartment. So in terms of elder financial abuse, we often see identity theft, or we see unauthorized or intimidated use of a debit card or credit cards. Oftentimes we see that with family members, such as a family member who's a caregiver, could be a grandchild or a son or a daughter who maybe does the shopping for the elder. And in addition to doing the shopping, they use the debit card or the credit card to take cash out above the amount or to just buy other things for themselves. And we also see a lot of scams. Next slide, please. So signs of elder financial abuse, and that I titled this "Forewarned is Forearmed." Education, as Kate did mention during the introduction, education and knowing what is out there is very important, because this is one area, the scams and the financial abuse is an area where you can avoid having either yourself or your family member or a loved one be a victim if you're aware of what's out there and can avoid it, or if you're aware of the signs and can stop it. So unusual bank activity, like large, frequent, or unexplained or just unusual withdrawals, is a sign. ATM withdrawals when the elder person never used an ATM. They like to go to the bank in person. It was the way they always did it. So if you start seeing something like that, that can be a sign. Unexplained withdrawals or transfers that can't be explained. If there's a large transfer and you ask, the elder person about it, and they either didn't know about it or they just don't have an explanation for why it is. And they think the bank made a mistake or something. Finding an additional name on the elder's account or the signature card on file with the bank. A piling up of mail that shows an accumulation of debts could be either a decline in the person's ability to handle their financial affairs, or it can mean that someone is exploiting them and causing them to incur debt that they really aren't doing intentionally, but they are either doing through intimidation or through lack of knowledge. Cancellation of insurance, whether it be homeowners insurance, renters insurance, car insurance, anything that shows a sign that the finances are different than they have always been or than they should be is a warning sign. Or the appearance of someone new. Now, obviously, make old friends, keep old friends, but make the new. Keep that sign that you learned in Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts when you were young. One is silver and the other is gold. Well, that's true. But if the new friend all of a sudden has a greater emphasis and control over the purse strings of the elder, that certainly is something to be concerned about. Next slide, please. So there's good news and there's bad news when it comes to financial exploitation. And first I'll go over the bad news so that I end on the good news. Very often multiple forms of abuse are present. The person who is exploiting the person financially can also be someone who is threatening. For example, if it's an important caregiver, someone who is seeing to that elder is able to remain in their home and not having to live in a nursing home or another long-term type care facility, could be threatening and saying, if you don't do this, I'm not gonna help you anymore, and you'll have to go, live in this facility you don't want to live in. Oftentimes, there's also a person that has power that can exert undue influence. For example, I'm not going to go get your medications unless, you give me an extra $100 because I need it. I need it because of this or because of that. And they involve not only the threat of not providing what is needed, but also an emotional quotient that makes the person feel guilty or makes the person feel like they should help. Here's someone who's helping me, I should help them. They prey on their emotions to get what they want. And the threat sometimes can override the elder's will, whether it's just because they feel intimidated or it's because they understand what is being threatened and what the imbalance is, but they're willing to put up with that because they don't want to risk that the person will carry out their threat because it may have a harmful effect on them in the long run. For example, they may be afraid that something worse could occur. Maybe they're afraid the person will start to hurt me physically, or maybe they're afraid that the person won't give me my medicine or won't get all of my medicines, or that they won't help me and I will have to go to the nursing home. As Tracey mentioned, New York has no mandatory reporting requirement. And most states have some type of mandated reporters. It varies from state to state who those mandated reporters are. It could be medical personnel. It could include nursing home and long-term care personnel. It could include law enforcement. Some states have what's called universal reporting, where everyone is required to report abuse, neglect, and exploitation to whatever that state's version of adult protective services is, so that it can be investigated. There are many professionals who think that a national standardized requirement would be useful for many reasons. One, consistency. Two, it would allow for there to be more focus on the issue and to allow greater research. And consistently, we live in a society where not only do we physically travel, but we do things from state to state via, digital services. There are many reasons why a national requirement would be a great idea. And basically what it comes down to is, if you see something, say something. Next slide, please. So the good news, it's preventable. Establishing open communication, whether that's between you, if you're the elder, and the other people that live with you, assuming you trust them, whether it's between a child and a parent, whether it's between grandchildren, parents, multiple generations. Open communication is important. And one way to do that is not to sort of become the parent of the elder, because that's not always a good dynamic. But one way to do it is to talk about things that you have faced and talk about how you handled it with your elder and get their input and sort of bring them in so that it becomes, a solution that they take part in, because I think that's important. Education is very important. Here's an example. One of the things that I'll have a slide on in a moment, but I'm going to jump ahead and talk about it, is the scam where there's an emergency and the grandparent gets a phone call, and it's a grandchild who says that they're in a foreign country and their wallet was stolen and they need money to get home, or they've had, an accident. They were broke a leg or did something and their insurance isn't covered in that country. So they need cash, they need money. Now, in this day and age, in the world that we live in, there are ways to either one, the voice is garbled so that the person can't really tell if they recognize the voice or not, but because they're fearful that this actually has occurred, they want to help. Or we live in an age where artificial intelligence does allow for some bad things to occur, such as cloning of voices. So if you have a grandchild who posts videos with audio on TikTok or, one of those similar types of forums, it can be copied and utilized by, savvy scammers. In that instance, it would be good if your family ahead of time has a safe word. And that safe word, can be whatever the family makes up. It can be something silly. It can be something that has meaning, but it should be something that only the family knows. And when you get that call, you say, well, Johnny, what's our safe word? And if they don't know or they hang up, you have your answer. The other way to do it, if you don't have a safe word, is to simply say, well, let me call you right back. And then you call the grandchild's cell phone number to find out if indeed that is the grandchild. There are some other things that can be helpful, such as setting up credit monitoring and identity theft protection. There are private companies like LifeLock, Norton, I think, is the company behind that, and other companies that will do that, so that you can have it notifications go out via either email or text message when unusual activity is occurring on your accounts, or accounts are opening in your name, things of that nature. Or divide duties. I'll tell you an example of what we did in my family. My mother, thankfully, lived to the age of 97 and a half years old, and she had 3 children. We all lived in different places. I had one brother who lived in the same city as her, and he was retired. He moved in with her and was able to cook for her, to shop for her, to go get her medications, to drive her to doctor's appointments. And that was his role in her continued care at home. I have another brother who didn't live in that same city, but is also an attorney. And he handled her financial, took over the payment of her bills and, went over it with her, kept her as having a role in it, but he physically did the work for her. And then there was me, who lived 4.5 hours away, who couldn't really do those things as easily. I was able to financially assist her in her declining years. And I also was her emotional support. We were very close. I spoke to her every single day on the phone. And, I would get a daily report of how things were going and what was happening in her world. And I knew because I was so close to her, I knew if anything was bothering her just from the sound of her voice. So having that kind of contact and dividing the duties amongst family members is good, because then you don't have one person who has all of the control. Next slide, please.
And Judge, after your next slide, we'll be moving to Q&A. We have about 5 minutes left.
Okay. So there are many, many scams. The reasons that seniors get targeted is the same reason that Willie Sutton, famous bank robber, was asked, why do you rob banks? And he answered, that's because that's where the money is. Seniors often have money. Seniors are often trusting. Sometimes they're isolated, and criminals are pretty savvy most of the time. They want to pick targets that they think they'll be successful with, and they want to pick targets that they think will have money, and they want to pick targets that they think they'll get away with it. And so that's why they utilize and pick seniors. Okay.
Thank you so much. Judge has much more to say, given her many years in this field, just like our other speakers. So I will invite Baitullah and Tracey to join us on camera, please. And I know that we are short on time. I will just share a very quick story, which wraps in all of these presentations today. We had a father who was being cared for in my sister's home. Care was being pushed into the house. And we found out one day the caregiver was being charged with a felony for fraud with another client who did not have family members around, was isolated, and it was mail that was being stolen from a mailbox where credit card offers were being made. So what seems so innocuous, we rip those up and throw them in the bin when we receive them in the mail, to be thinking about all those little bits and pieces. So I have a question for all of you that came in from one of our committee members, Jim. And I would ask if each of you just want to give a snippet of what your impressions are in whether we are headed in the direction of things getting better or things getting worse. I know that that's hard to say quickly. And then I have one final question for each of you. Why don't we start with Baitullah?
Yeah, thank you. As far as I have a talk with the immigrant community last week before for preparation of this presentation, most of them were unfortunately complaining, especially situation in Rochester, that receiving increasing number of Afghan refugees, they're suffering. There is only few community centers that they can go and sit and meet each other. And most of them are, especially after the 2021 collapse of the government, are people who were not ready for immigration to the US, and now they have to leave Afghanistan and arrive here unprepared for anything, which is increasing pressure on the community.
Judge?
I'm going to answer that question twofold. One, I think that things are getting worse and better in the area of how crime can be committed because of our technology, and in particular artificial intelligence. But at the same time, technology, including artificial intelligence, can cause us to be victimized more, but also can help us catch the people doing it and prevent victimization. I just read an article in Consumer Reports that Ring doorbell cameras were being used because they could be hacked into by stalkers. But at the same time, artificial intelligence, once you notify the company, they can make the fix and then that can no longer happen again. So while we couldn't, stop phone scammers years ago because they were, changing phone numbers and in foreign countries, now we have means to do it because we can use technology to our aid. And number two, the baby boomer generation. There are so many of us now. I'm hoping that there's strength in numbers. So I think I'm going to go with things are getting better.
I love strength in numbers. That's wonderful. Tracy, your thoughts before we close up?
By the end of the year, every single baby boomer will be age 60 and older. I would say that it's getting better in terms of knowledge base and all that. We really are following kind of the pattern and path that intimate partner violence has gone. So it's going to be a constant it's going to be constant work. I will never ever lack for a job. But I do think there are more people that are involved now, and we're seeing different levels of activation on every level of government as it regards to elder abuse. So getting better, but always will be a challenge.
For that, for all of you with the positive swing at the end. So now a little bit more of a difficult question. If each of you, as many of you may be, have parents or friends who are aging in your life, if you had to think of one or two tips to tell them to prevent themselves from being exploited across domains, what would those things be?
Trust your gut. If you have a bad feeling about something, talk about it with someone else that you trust. Have a backup plan for a backup plan. Always have multiple points of exit and multiple aspects and people that you can go to for help and assistance.
That's wonderful. And some in our chat are saying you can always ask for help, which is a great comment too. Judge?
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, don't be afraid to ask for help. We like to do things for ourselves, but it doesn't mean you have to follow the direction you're given, but having options is important, and being able to evaluate what the options are, very important.
Thank you for that. Baitullah?
I believe what I had experienced with my father when he was aging, he would always insist on what he need. It was not that anyone could make excuse for it, despite that Afghanistan was not very developed on the services. But he will insist and he will share what he need, and I believe anyone should do that.
Thank you. I'd like to close on the note that my experience in doing investigations and mitigation work is that often the signs and symptoms that we've just heard about from our speakers are ignored because someone is aging. And we will often hear family members say, well, they're having memory issues, or well, they have delusions or paranoia. And in the Department of Psychiatry, the chair, Dr. Eric Kane, when he would be talking with residents around our patients who had mental health challenges and perhaps delusions or hallucinations that were reporting all sorts of things, he always said, let's start from the point of inquiry and not assume that something's not true. So with that, I would like to have a thank you to our panelists. I would also like to thank our committee who worked on this, some of the people who you've been hearing from over our series. We have James, Richard, Carlin, Tracey was on the committee, Judge Winslow was on the committee, Baitullah and Tracey. And also really like to thank the Susan B. Anthony staff, our students who participated in helping the flyer get out the door, Sebastian, who's been behind the scenes the whole time. We have our students, Athena, Ariel, Sid, and also Baitullah and John Cullen, who helped orchestrate the invitations for this. So it takes a team to launch a webinar, and it takes a team to keep our seniors safe. So thank you everybody for being here. And with that, we will go offline. Please keep your eyes open. You'll be receiving an email from the Susan B. Anthony Center with all the tips and tools that you heard about today. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.